to hear what it's really like to be a voice actor. It's the Voiceover Gurus podcast.
Welcome back to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. I'm Linda Bruno, and this is part 2 of my chat with voice talent Connor Quinn. When I did the live announce at Radio City years back, it's all union folk there. Right. They were like, oh, I need a light for the desk so I can, nope, that had to be a certain person had to go get this light and install the light. It's just like I couldn't just walk over and grab a light because there's a union person who was getting paid to do that. We've got to move the stage. Well, the union people have to come in and do it. No one could do. That was amazing. I mean,
it's absolutely, it's I can see the benefits for that. It was craziness when I was a kid, working different sets. Sesame Street was a little more lax. It was still union, but it was like most of them were educators. So they weren't, none of them, including, Carol Spinney, that was Big Bird, and Jim Henson. And they weren't making crazy big bucks because it's public broadcasting. Right. Jim was making his money with the Muppets, with with the films that he was doing. That was his dream. He was doing that because he had a vision of educating children. He wasn't doing it for the money. He was doing it for the love. Right. And all of those people pretty much. So they were a little kind of laid back on, on those specific laws. But back in LA, oh, you want a drink of water? What are you doing? Getting a drink of water? That's not your job.
I know.
So as a little kid, you're confused. So when you get home, who gets you the water? It's like, wait a minute. You're telling me I can't get the water, but now I can get the water. Oh my God.
Well, you become an adult very quickly as a child actor because you're dealing with some unusual situations.
Right. Thank God the rules changed, and nothing against for listeners that are millennials and Gen Zs or whatever, but Gen Xers, we were just that generation that had to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps because we, for God's sake, I would go out riding with my buddies on bikes and, who knows when the hell I'm going to come home.
Yeah.
My mom probably didn't know where we went halfway across town in my hometown and then I'll be home by when the lights come on. Mm-hmm. So, you had to definitely learn, especially in that era of child acting, to survive. And, all jokes aside, I'm very blessed that I'm still here because so many of my peers had horrible lives as child actors.
That's what you hear, yeah.
I can't even really talk about it. I mean, just... They
don't transition into another
even
level of a career.
They're, abused and just the atrocities. And so many have, unfortunately succumbed to the business and weren't able, like you said, to transition into an adult. So I thank God that I had a team around me that was cognizant of, that needs to happen.
That's great.
Yeah. But for those that are listening, I mean, luckily you don't have to deal with that. Your focus is, do that direct marketing and do that social media engagement. But that's tough it is tough if you're not
it's hard.
Social person, really.
But I think that sometimes people are like, oh, you had it so much easier, because now we have the internet. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's been tough all along. It's not like it suddenly became really, really difficult because sometimes it'll be like, oh, old timer. You're an old timer. You don't know. It's like, no.
It was. There's a story. It's like I remember I was embarrassed to say as a voiceover because actors didn't call you you weren't an actor. Oh, you're a voiceover? That means you're not good enough to
not respected.
Be on camera or
it was like a secondary thing that actors would pick up for extra money.
Completely. I had to shadow as a teenager. He's passed on, so I can talk. His name was Percy Rodriguez, a very he's another guy. If you Google, he was a very commanding presence for television serials, and he was on Star Trek. And I mean, he just did a lot of stuff on television, but he was a hell of a voiceover, especially with movie trailers, which were big back then. He was the original movie trailer for Jaws, and
wow.
He was the voice of Coca-Cola for a while. He was the voice of Kenny Shoes, for those people that might remember. Kenny Shoes, we only sell the right shoe. He had a
Kenny
very
Shoes
staccato. What's that?
Kinney Shoes was the first big job I ever booked.
Are you?
Yep. In
What?
97, when I moved to New York, it was my first like booking with the agent, and I got a bunch of wild spots that ran for a while, and I
Oh my
did
gosh.
like 7 spots. And
Wow.
it was because I could read quickly. It was like a little talent I had. And so they loved it because I had to say like running shoes, hiking shoes, biking shoes, walking shoes, and do this whole thing. And I remember doing
still do
7
it.
spots obviously going into Manhattan for it. And I did it in 40 minutes. And the producer's like,
Wow.
you did 7 spots in 40 minutes. And I was like, oh, is that good? Not realizing.
Yeah.
And then the residual check started to come in. And I was like, this is sweet, man. Yeah. And
Right.
then
Yeah. It's like shooting fish in a barrel.
I didn't work again for 6 months.
Yeah. See, there you go. It's the ups and downs. Thank you, folks. Good night, everybody. It is. It's the reality. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah. That
You
was my
have to-
awakening. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to put back money. So when times are good and the residual checks are coming in, or
Because you
those
feel like it's
jobs,
going to last forever. You're like, oh, this is great. You just
it's like
go-
hitting the small lottery. Oh,
Yeah.
look,
Yeah.
$300. It's like, and then those residual checks say, oh, it's a check for 17 cents. How wonderful. It's just, I'll see these up for 10 years and maybe go buy a hamburger.
I know.
But yeah, Percy was very interesting as far as voiceover goes, but he was a classically trained Shakespearean trained actor.
Oh.
And, the stage and the movies and the television, that was the real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd gone with him. He was doing a sirloin stockade commercial. He was the voice of sirloin stockade for a while. And we were leaving that. And I was like, that's incredible. It was just because he would come in right at exactly 59 seconds or whatever they needed him. He had impeccable
On
timing.
the money.
And I was complimenting him on that. And he goes, oh, that's, who cares? This is just fitter fatter to make money between real acting jobs.
Right.
And he said, Connor, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, well, gosh, I want to do commercials. I want to do what? I mean, he had a bad taste in his mouth.
Yeah. Disgusted.
What are you saying? You want to do commercials and sell out? And I love jingles, and commercials made me so happy. And yeah, I was more interested in them than film and television. And
Now what they want what he wants to hear.
he couldn't understand it, but it's like I have been a voiceover nerd since I was 6 years old. I mean,
Wow.
So
You were meant for it.
I was really cut out. I couldn't do it. I can't do anything else. So I have to, do this. When I was real young, I wanted to know who the voice of Toucan Sam was, because Fruit Loops was big.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know who the voice of the Pillsbury Doughboy is, and who is the voice of the Jolly Green Giant.
Ah. Uh-huh.
So I had my agent, help me. How can I? And she's like, why do you want to know this? I'm like, because apparently these people get paid for that, right? And she's like, they do. They're voice actors, but who cares who they? And I'm like, I do. I want to know all about them. Well, they all three happen to share the Leo Burnett agency in Chicago. So I called. They told me right off the bat that information is contractually and legally restricted, and we can't. Well, he was talking to his assistant, this other guy, and he kind of like let on that this guy was brand new, had just hired, so he really didn't know the policy on stuff. And I heard him say he was going to a meeting. Well, I'm 15 years old and doing my best. I was going to try to imitate him. So I hung up. I waited for the guy to leave probably. Then I called back and acted like I was that guy talking to the assistant. And I said, pull these files, the Jolly Green Giant, Green Giant
15-year-old.
Right. And so he pulled all these files while I'm, paying long distance back in, 1984, 83. And so he read them off. I mean, he gave me their name, their mailing address. So I found out Lynn Dressler was the voice of the Jolly Green Giant. Paul Frees was the voice of Toucan Sam and the Pillsbury Doughboy. Well, I wrote them, and they were shocked because voiceovers in those day and age, most people didn't even know what a voiceover was.
Right.
They couldn't believe that some kid was interested in, they didn't have headshots. I mean, they're like,
what?
Who are you? I mean, yeah, it's, something I've done, but those became lifelong friends. Lynn Dressler, who lived in Chicago, and Paul Frees in the voiceover industry is absolutely huge. He's the voice in The Haunted Mansion. he was the voice of Boris Badenoff on Rocky and Bullwinkle, and
Wow.
you know, for the kids of the 70s and 80s, hearing his voice is like, you know,
Yeah, it takes you right back.
kind of like God. Yeah, exactly.
Now, have you maintained this? You haven't had any breaks from the voiceover industry? Your
Yeah,
whole career,
no.
you've done that. You haven't
Yeah.
taken any kind of other paths.
Yeah, thank God I can only do that. You know, I can only do this, so it has to work or nothing. It's
Yeah, there's no
it's
there's no
Neumann or
backup plan.
bust, right? Yeah, so yeah, no, I have no. I
So now
can't go
you're back in Oklahoma City?
in Oklahoma City area, right? Yeah, and
Okay.
well, that was a heck of a change. You know,
Sorry.
going from Los Angeles to.
I was gonna say,
not
that's a
you.
big-
No,
oh,
it is a
right.
big change. Lifestyle. Yeah, sorry. No, I wasn't talking about your. That was a great segue, by the
Right.
way. Linda. I mean, let's get real. So coming from LA, so like right now, okay, I'm looking out my studio window and there's a cow chewing her cud. You know, versus traveling the 405, you know, therefore towards the end, you know, leaving a location or whatever, and I only had to drive 2 miles, but it was traffic so bad you had to shut your car engine off or else you'd run out of gas. I'm fat. I could go on the ground and just crawl to my home faster than we were going. So I was like, I knew there had to be a change.
So that must have been a massive change, though. I mean, the
is very
pace,
yeah, once technology got to where it is, to where I could do, well, we had ISDN, so thank God we had that here that allowed me to
oh, that's good.
get connected. And then, you know, it's been a dying dinosaur since the 90s. You know, it's old technology. And
I
thank
finally
God,
got rid of my box like 2 years ago. I hung
yeah,
on.
Did you?
I
Yeah, I
hung
did
on.
too. Because I still had clients that, you know, that were,
Yeah.
they wanted, you know, are you on the Zephyr? Is like, well, yeah, I guess have you heard of IPDTL or source? What?
Yeah.
No. It's Source Connect. ISDN, baby. That's the,
2
No.
years ago, we moved from Plainview here on Long Island to Melville. That's where we are now. And at
Right.
that point, I was like, "There's no point. I can't get any lines installed. You know,
Nobody.
Verizon's
Yeah,
like done."
yeah, they might, there might be some existing, but the guy from AT&T in Dallas told me we haven't installed ISDN in years and we're not helping you maintain it.
Right.
So those that have it, they're grandfathered in, but beyond
That's it.
that, it's like, it's end of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was so costly anyway. So I'd
But
much
for
rather
me,
pay
when I was starting out, is one of my good friends is Brian Lee. He's a big promo guy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Brian,
know Brian Lee?
he's on Channel 4. Here in the
Okay,
city.
yeah,
Yep.
he's everywhere.
Yeah. Brian's he's a good friend of mine. Yeah. Wonderful talent.
That's also, I have to tell him that we spoke. But
Yeah.
he would say to me, "Lynn, you want to be in the big time, you got to get an ISDN line." And this was like in '99, and I'm up here in New York, and I'm like, okay. So I got the
well,
box and everything, because he was like, if you want to be in big time, you want to work for networks, you got to do it. And he was right. I mean, he was right. You had to have that equipment to, you know,
did.
be in the game. Now you don't, but
Yeah.
he still uses his
thank
all
goodness.
the time.
And that, you know, for people starting out, it's, you know, you don't have to spend $40,000. You know, it's not like you're, you know, for less than the franchise fee for opening a Subway restaurant. You know, you don't have to do that anymore. I mean,
No.
the microphones have gotten cheaper. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I are speaking on very expensive microphones, and you know,
But it's certainly not necessary.
no, it's not.
You know?
You know, for many years, you know, my clients, you know, that rhymes with Risney. You know, they, you know, you better use the Neumann on this session or whatever. Well, I've used other microphones in the session and they never knew. They
Yeah.
pretend like it's like,
Yeah.
maybe I'm really speaking out of it, but I think people that pretend like they really know art or wine,
Oh, right.
I think they probably do. They know some, but I think
Right.
there's a lot of BS involved. Maybe I'm wrong.
I
I'm probably
agree.
wrong, but it's just like, yeah, they would swear. And once I told them and assured them, oh yes, I'm on my 87. Oh gosh, it's so rich. Your
Oh, yeah,
your
sure.
iambic
Uh-huh.
pentameter. Give me a break.
Well, I worked for Risney Asia for 14 years.
Did you? Oh my
And,
gosh.
Yeah, their promo voice. And they were not particular about the microphone, but they were particular about, I had to do ISDN sessions with them. And I would have to do them live, and they were in Singapore. So it's a 12-hour difference.
Oh my gosh.
So I'd be at
Oh.
the studio at 9 o'clock at night and doing the sessions, which I'm very grateful for. It was fantastic. It was a very long period of time. It took them 7 years to finally trust me to do a session by myself.
Well, for years,
Yeah.
even when I moved out to Oklahoma, I would have to fly back to Burbank, or maybe occasionally they would use their studio in Orlando. But even to this day, it's like for the big things, I have to fly back to Burbank.
Yeah.
They don't want,
They
are
want you in
not,
person.
okay, that's cool that you have a little studio.
Isn't that
It's like,
cute? Get over
it's
here.
cute, but our studio was built in 1942. It's like,
Right.
but is it necessary? No.
Right.
So for those, you and I are talking, there's a lot of people dreaming of being in our footsteps, I guess.
Right.
And for those that are starting out, you don't need that. You have to have that confidence. That's what you really need. You need the confidence to face each day and go forward with what you have. And you don't have to have a great voice, but you have to be able to tell a story.
You need to be an actor. You need to be able to, like you said, tell the story, connect with your audience. I don't care who it is.
That's it. Because if you listen to the voices everywhere, especially when they have seasoned actors, I heard a commercial the other day and I'm just like, who the hell is this guy? I mean, his pronunciation's a little bit, it was for Boar's Head. And I'm like, yeah, God, for the voice guy, this is just
really,
well, come to find out it was Clancy Brown, so they're using an on-camera actor
who's not right.
I mean, Clancy does a lot of
Gotcha.
voiceover, so don't get me wrong. Clancy does a lot of animation and stuff like that, but this was just his regular voice read that he might do in a film. And it was great. He was just reading it like a normal person would, with that gravitas and that thing that, is unique to his character. But it was, so many times in voiceover, we are directed to be perfect, to
Right.
have, especially with announcing, the eloquence and the pronunciation has to be on par. And it's hard to shift off of that and, do an anthem video for a medical company. And
Right.
you're talking to people.
So you're saying like his style as an actor was coming through on that Boar's Head commercial
It
that
was
wasn't
unique.
transferring as a.
I was thinking of it as a voiceover, which I shouldn't have. I'm a coach, for God's sake. And he was sounding like you should sound. Just like the way you and I are talking right now. We're not putting anything on.
Right.
You're not reading a script, and I'm not reading a script. We're just talking. There's breathing between us, and stuff
Thinking
like
pauses.
that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that, of course, is exactly what you and I try to bring in real sessions, is that, that just that normalness, that normalcy. But also, as you and I know, that no casting director is going to get us in the booth if we were a quote real person. Because if they wanted Helen in, well, that dates me, right? Using the name Helen, or whatever, like Cleveland. But so if they wanted a real voice, they would call Carol in accounting. They don't want that. That's why they went out and got an actor, because they do want that sense of professionalism,
but
not too not too spotless.
You have to find that balance, and that can be very tough.
It can be, right? Yeah
Because if you're
get
too
far,
conversational, then it's like
God.
no. Now it just sounds boring and uninterested, especially with the millennial read, So
yeah, exactly. Which, when I see that, it's like, I skip it. Well, I'm horrible about reading direction anyways. I do not ever look at their guidelines of what are they expecting. I just think of it, okay, if this was me, if I was Oscar Mayer, right? If I'm Oscar Mayer, what would I want to hear this commercial has? And that's how I do it. I'm not recommending that, by the way.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing too. And I'm not saying to ignore the specs, but a lot of times, and then when I see the spot run, I'm like, that's nothing like what they asked for.
Thank you. Yeah,
and
it's
I'm like, what happened?
So many times I've done stuff, and I always squeeze in, because I think you're always networking. I was a little devil when I was, thank God I have like this middle range voice that allows me to be very flexible, so I could do character work and all that. But as a young kid, when I would go into a recording session in LA, I would say, so who's in the hall? Who else are you reading today? And so they tell me, well, I could do them. I'll say, oh, by the way, this is what Mason Adams is going to sound like when he reads it. So I would do a Mason Adams read, or I would do a Hal Douglas read, or whoever they were going to bring in. And so they may not cast me, but they're like, oh my God, this
he
Michael
can do
Landon's
all that.
right. This kid talks a lot.
Yeah.
So But nowadays what I try to do is I give them exactly what they're looking for. But my key is always, I say, oh, you just gave me a great idea. So I make it sound like it's on there,
right.
right? I said, let me just do this one way, and letting me get it out of my system.
That's great.
And usually that is the read that they go for, because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Because
that's a great way to go.
Most of these people that are casting, this might be their 100th session.
Mm-hmm.
I've done tens of thousands of recording sessions. And
so now when you're auditioning though, like, how do you submit like 2 takes and do one that's maybe a little more creative, or what's your rule there?
Right. So as you know, a lot of agents or casting directors might say just one. I only want one read. So I try to give them what they were looking for. But if there is no rule or whatever, I'll always go to, and exactly what you just said is I give them pretty much in the ballpark of what they're wanting. And then I give my interpretation of how I would do it.
Yeah.
Just kind of more relaxing. Usually the client will come back and say, we liked your second read. Mm-hmm. Even though the first was exactly what they, if I read the specs, that's exactly what they wanted.
Right.
So many times I've been asked to do, they want a British accent or blah, blah, blah. I ignore all of that. And I just do, some of the early Harry Potter trailers that I got, I didn't know what I didn't know what any of this was. Nobody really did unless you read the book. And they were wanting to match the main wizard guy. You can tell I'm
Dumbledore.
Dumbledore, thank you so much. Yes.
I'm not a huge Harry Potter person, but I'm guessing.
I think it's Dumbledore. Yeah.
Yeah. Dumbledore.
So anyway, they're wanting to match that actor, and they didn't send a clip or anything like that. So I just rushed it, and I did. For years I understudied with a voice actor named Hal Douglas, who
he's famous.
Yeah, he did a lot of, there was Don LaFontaine and there was him, and they both did In a World.
In a World.
They were famous for that. So Don LaFontaine did the action adventures, and Hal did a lot of the funny, the rom-coms. And so I just did, how would Hal Douglas read this? So, it came out, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone begins Friday, November 23rd at a theater near you. It's just how would
you're hired.
Right. So how would Hal read it? Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. He was a cop. She was a killer. Together they're cops and robbers. It's just that he had there's a rhythm,
now, But what made you think, let me try to figure out, how would Hal do this? What made you even think that?
So on that particular thing, they had made a mistake of, in those days, we were doing live sessions and I was in with the engineer. They had emailed him, and they had gone through multiple sessions of rounds of recording with different actors, and they had included a lot of the reads. And so the engineer was listening to him when I came in from the recording studio. He was playing him, and I listened to him. So they all sounded alike of what you would think of if you heard a wizard. And, this is a show mainly for children, and it was just too much. It was like, is this a haunted mansion? Is this about murder? This is about, funny tasting magical beer and, flying cars and stuff like that. So, I pulled a little bit of the Disney magic of, how Hal would have read when he smiled and did his feel good rom-coms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm sure
your
you
inspiration.
You just have this piece. You're like, oh my God, this is like a puzzle. Mm-hmm. Yes. That, even if I don't get it in my mind, that is the read that should be. And there's others that you do, and you're like, oh my God, no, bad karma.
But accessing that comes from all the years of you being in the business, of you being able to let go so easily and being able to tap into those, those little creative pockets that can only come from.
I love how you say letting go, because that's something that someone who's just starting out can learn to do and needs to learn to do. Because
yes,
all of us that are in this industry or wanting to be in the industry have built up expectations of anime, of Barbie, of
Yeah.
whatever your inspiration, and all of us have different inspirations for voiceover. Whatever that has led you to it, that may not be the end all sound. You have to put your ego aside if you're going to be telling. If some company or an individual has trusted you with telling their brand, that's an awesome,
It's
anytime
the greatest
I work
compliment.
it's huge, whether it be, in my case, whether it's Risney, or it's the folks at Crayola or whatever that I do. It's
an
fortunate.
honor.
It is an honor, but it's just as much an honor if it's a local medical firm, that's based in Austin, Texas, or a boot company based in Montana. I mean, it's just
They chose you.
So using that inspiration, you have to kind of put that aside to what I want to bring to the role versus what they are wanting. It's okay to bring to it and say, this is what I feel for it. And they might listen to it and just, no, thanks, but no thanks.
Right.
That's fine. So you kind of go, but like you said, over the years, just like you, with our experience between us, you go over and over and you learn, you start to get a feel for, you feel your way blindly in a copy. What is the hidden message? Who am I talking to? Who am I? Mm-hmm. And not what are we selling, but what are we telling? What is great. We never sell, because I hate being sold to.
Yes.
So anytime I feel, oh, that was a bit salesy, which matches that voice.
Yeah.
Drop it. What the hell? I mean, I want to puke. I don't want to be sold to, because it sounds like the 50s. Hey there,
I know. You need to do this now. Yeah,
which
nobody
is fine
wants to
if
hear
they're
that.
calling for those, nostalgic big voiceovers. But
yeah,
in my day, you had to sound like for men, you had to sound like Gary Owens or Orson Welles. You had to have the voice of God. Mm-hmm. And I remember, Ernie Anderson did a workshop. He was a promo guy that for ABC back in the 70s and 80s. He was television. I thought Mr. Television. He was telling a bunch of us that one of us asked, how do we get a voice like you? Oh, you smoke a bunch of effing Camels and you drink whiskey every night and get drunk, just, oh my God, what?
That's the advice. Old school advice.
16. That sounds kind of cool. So I thought, that's what we have to do. But it's just like my voice now. I mean, there's probably people listening to it going, who the heck has Linda got on the show? I mean, who is this? Is he an accountant? I mean, people are disappointed when they call my studio. I usually answer studio, and they go, yeah, is Connor Quinn in? Speaking. Oh, I mean, they sound so
disappointed.
Yeah, because we've heard your demos, and this, oh, come on, quit putting this voice on. It's like, no, this is.
So you're coaching as well. You coach.
I try, I do a little bit, but I try not to overdo it. Like you, I'm a working professional, and I know, like you, it's also, we have to carefully balance, because a lot of people come to you and I for different things. You do a lot of things outside of voice, connected with voiceover, but there's so much that goes with it, as you know, and you talk about whether it's marketing or whether it's just being in your workplace and, being the best you that you can be, the most authentic you. And so, I do, coaching on the side, but it's not like, I'm always leery of people who are just coaches. I know they're probably good, but it's like, all of my coach, this is just me, back in my day, you didn't get coaches. You learned voiceover and then you just started to work. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it started in the 80s. Well, who's your voiceover coach? What? Yeah. Now we need a coach. Well, I'm glad they do, because coaches, they do help you get out of ruts. They help you discover and set goals. All types of, life coaches. There's all kinds of wonderful things. And I'm grateful for that. So, but I try to be, I don't know. I think that whoever you go with, you look at their resume, even if they're just a coach. How long have they been coaching? What is their reputation? If they are a voiceover, how long have they been doing it? How successful? And success doesn't mean being the voice of X, Y, and Z. It means, like a lot of us, just putting in the time of
The consistency of working and
thank you, because
sticking it
a lot
out.
of our day is about making those connections. And
Right.
I told some guy was telling me recently, a student was saying, I don't like auditioning. And I said, well, then you probably need to find something else to do.
Yeah.
Because he goes, well, you don't audition. And I go, I audition a lot, and you need to keep track of your ratio.
Yeah.
You need to be aware of your numbers, your hits versus misses, your swings versus your home runs.
It's better than the guy that walked in here and said, I just need to tell you, I don't like to read. And I went, well, there's the door, because that's what we do as voice actors. You're going to have to read. Yeah.
You have to talk to yourself, and, I'm getting paid for everything I used to get in trouble for in high school. Thank you so much.
I could talk to you all day. You know what? I'm thinking we can do another podcast at a later time and maybe talk specifically about performance.
Okay.
Because I think that would be a fascinating thing with all of your years of experience, and we can do that, because I can't believe it. So much time has passed. It's fantastic. It
has been. Oh my gosh.
It's been great.
It flew by. You were so much fun, Linda. And I'm a big fan. I've enjoyed your work, and I'm just honored that you had me on your show.
Oh, well, thanks for reaching out, first of all, because I wouldn't have even known, but I appreciate that. But
I didn't know if I qualified. I was like, I don't know if, this is like an audition, if
all right. What's your website, Connor?
It is, now, Vox is the Latin word for voice. So it's VoxGuy, VoxGuy.com.
Oh, very nice. So check out Connor's website. You can listen to his demos and hear all the fantastic work that he's done.
If you're really bored, you can check out all those demos, right?
Hey, we learn from all sorts of performances.
Every day. Me, just last thing before you wrap up here, if you're in the car with me, I don't listen to music. I listen to commercials 24/7.
Yeah.
I go to sleep with commercials I've recorded. I still record commercials that are on air, because I need to be aware of what's being cast now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What is the type of read? What is the style? So I love YouTube pre-roll. I don't necessarily love YouTube channels. I watch the pre-rolls, and
agreed.
Pandora. I don't buy the professional. I listen to the spots.
Yeah,
because I want to know. Absolutely.
You have to know.
So you're right. Always a student.
Totally, completely. And on that note, we wrap up another fantastic episode of the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Thanks again, Connor, for joining me.
Absolutely.
And everyone, have a fantastic rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Real talk about the voiceover industry. Learn more about us and get coaching at voiceover.guru.